All right, here we go. Hey guys, welcome back to Gear There and Everywhere. I'm Sam and I am in the car with Ryan. And we are on our way to play a very special guitar today, previously owned by Eric Clapton. And George Harrison played it. We know that for sure because there is a picture. Ryan, how do you feel you're about to play a guitar that was played by George?
I hope they have good insurance.
All right, we're here with Graham Alexander and our friend Gio, who's been on the podcast before. And this is super exciting. Graham, thank you for this opportunity to see and play this guitar.
Hey, no problem. So the Victor Company owns this guitar now. I originally got it because I thought it was really neat. This is a Gibson Style O from 1913. And it is a basically Big Bill Brunsey guitar.
Well, you got to hear people like Big Bill Brunsey. I think he might have even done a tour of England.
It would have been the type of model he used, and this particular one came by way of the Delaney Bramlett estate through Julian's auction house. And Delaney either borrowed permanently or was gifted this guitar by Eric Clapton. Of course, we can see that Eric and he share the guitar slightly before meeting Delaney Bramlett in the summer of 1969. And the photo of George and Eric playing it is from the Cream Farewell tour in October of 68. Yep, in Los Angeles. This guitar was, according to Delaney, there's an issue of Guitar Player magazine from March of 1996 where he mentions that he and Eric found it in a trash can in 1970 while on tour. There's only one small problem with that. He literally says that same story 4 or 5 other times about 4 or 5 other guitars. We learned that by some means or another, Delaney either didn't know or keeping those stories, or maybe was looking to hide where it came from. Delaney kind of was well known in their circle for sort of like being very pushy about guitars. The Rosewood Telly is a really good example of that. Alan Pariser was Delaney and Bonnie's manager. And when they went over to England and George Harrison came and saw them that first night, he sort of asked, "Can I come on the tour?" And Delaney said, "Sure." And Alan Pariser took George aside, and he was already a friend of George's at that point. And he basically said, "Hey, Delaney really likes when people give him guitars. And if you have a guitar, if you bring a guitar with you, he's going to bother you for it. So if you're really smart and you really want to get this guy to like just stop being annoying, you're going to, when he picks you up tomorrow morning on the tour bus, you're just going to walk up with your guitar and just hand it to him, and just he'll love you forever." And so the next morning they pulled the tour bus outside of George's home in Esher, and Patty had no idea he was going to leave for like a many-week tour. So apparently like Delaney walked up to the door and knocked on it, and George came out with a little lamp and a couple of guitars, and took the one guitar and just handed it right to Delaney as he got off the bus and said, "This is for you." And that was the Rosewood Telly. And this is one of those guitars that traveled in those circles, and super cool. Super cool, and plays great. Eric obviously had it rehabbed, and we know that because there's a photo published in late '68 of the binding here. There's like it's a photo of him holding it. If you get into the photo, like the binding is just up. It's like completely off the neck.
Wow.
We believe, according to Norm's Rare Guitars, that this work was done by Milt Owen, who worked at a music store in LA that basically everyone took their archtop guitars to. And he was a former Gibson employee. He was fired in the 1920s or 30s for refinishing someone's guitar when they didn't ask him to. He was like a real stickler, and he was like, well, the finish isn't good, so I'm refinishing it. And then they handed it back to me like, we didn't want you to do that, and they fired him.
Wow.
But he would one of his characteristics was he hand carved replacement bridges, and he basically had all these sort of like a classic luthier, like a true violin luthier. He sort of had like these like tap methods. So he designed this bridge style, and he would hand carve all these. You can see it has this strange bevel here, and it doesn't touch the full surface like the original would have. The original would have had a wheel adjustable. These guitars, this is a 1913. This would have sold for like $260, which at the time would be like $5,000. So they didn't make a lot of them. I think it's 180 some that left the factory in 1913, and has a very particular tailpiece. This is a Gibson L48 tailpiece. It has two bevels here, which is sort of unusual for the time period. Either they had straight, and then they would go to this piece. It's really bizarre.
So which is original in terms of the bridge and the tail?
None of them. None of them. And they were replaced by the George Harrison and Eric Clapton photo. Eric was also buying a lot of cars instead of guitars at that time. He was shipping a lot of cars. He actually bought one for Delaney. He bought a British cab for Delaney, which is so strange. Eric liked spending on cool things, and I can imagine that in LA somebody's probably said, "Oh, you like Bill Brunzi?" He's a big fan of Bill Brunzi. It's almost certain that would have been the inspiration to buy it, because otherwise it's like
it's an odd guitar.
It's not a guitar,
yeah,
and certainly not one that I have run across in my years of playing guitar. Most people I've spoken to are like, I've never seen one in person necessarily. It's also unusual for the model that it is. It's not even a typical style O. The 1913s have a very particular, a lack of the Gibson on the headstock, which the 1914s have the Gibson, and the 1912s have the Gibson. So for some reason they just decided, nah. Some really interesting little details.
So there's 108 of these from that year?
It's 180.
180, that's right.
Yeah, and I think as best we can tell, because it seems to be like 3 or 4 floating around, it's also a really weird refinish. This finish is bizarre. Definitely refinished by the time the George and Eric Garden photo is existent. Thus, it was probably refinished in that time period. It's my understanding that Milt and Milt's refinishing partner could get a refinish done in like a day and seal it. It wouldn't surprise me if the photo of Eric playing it with the binding right here coming out, it wouldn't surprise me if that was new binding that simply didn't set fast enough. Does that make any sense?
Yeah,
It sort of looks white and good. Like it looks like they just unrolled it, which would indicate like maybe like he just brought it outside too quick and just a glue thing happened. But
do you know what the original finish would have been? Like a reddish kind of color?
it's just a much lighter sunburst than this is.
So this is actually considered. Oh, I do see the sunburst. No, I thought it was just all black.
Is that funny?
Once you look up,
most of them are all black. Yeah, it's funny. This is maybe one of the most like photosensitive finishes I've ever seen. As soon as you start putting a light on it, you realize it's actually very light in the middle when there's a light on it, and it's like. It's a weird spray pattern, I mean, obviously Gibson had some weird spray patterns at certain points. But this one is particularly weird. They had 3 colors back then. They had obviously normal sunburst, which was much lighter. And then they had black, which is the most common finish. And then there were a few blondes. But this one's super weird.
The checking is beautiful on it too.
Bizarre, right? Yeah. Really great. So it's a really, really very pretty guitar. I just liked old guitars. I've always liked this style of guitar. It's a little wacky looking, but I think it's pretty cool. I think it's pretty psychedelic looking. It kind of has, this wouldn't have been that far out. And what it led us to was a lot of great discoveries, including that it was there for all the writing sessions of Badge. They wrote Badge in like 2-3 different locations. Badge, as it turns out, sort of is, as it sounds, sort of like 3 different songs and 3 different,
So you were able to date the Badge writing sessions and this guitar's connection because of the location and the fact that Eric owned it at the time.
Yeah, well, and also Mal Evans and a million other sources where basically they had, Cream's tour manager and the hotel they were staying at, and which was the Beverly Hills Hotel. And Eric's only acoustic during that entire tour was this.
Wow.
Like many of us, the only story I've ever heard about Here Comes the Sun was that, like George and Eric wrote it in the garden.
It was one of those beautiful spring mornings. I think it was April. And we were just walking around the garden with our guitars. And that was the thing. I don't do that, I'd only ever do. This was what George brought to the situation. He was just a magical guy, and he would show up with his guitar, get out of the car with the guitar, and come in and you'd start playing. And we walked around the garden. We sat down at the bottom of the garden looking out over and the sun was shining, and it was a beautiful morning, and he started to sing. Here Comes the Sun, and the opening lines, and I just watched this thing come to life.
And yes, that's true. It's at least 2 gardens though, because at some point they started working on Here Comes the Sun in England, and then when they got to the bridge, Eric said in some interview that basically he got asked, like, George was like, so I'm gonna reuse this little progression and I'm just gonna shape it a little bit differently.
Do you mean the Badge?
It's literally like it's like, and when I saw that in George's lyric sheet, it just says "Son of Badge."
Wow.
When I first saw the thing, I thought it was like "Son of Bridge." What is that? Like my eyes bulged out. I was like, "What? What does that mean?" And then I was like, "Oh my god! It says Badge." That's so. And then I realized, oh, it's almost the same part.
So, sorry, going back to Here Comes the Sun, I didn't realize this is the only acoustic Eric had lying around, is what you're saying. So that...
During the Badge, when they were writing Badge before the Badge sessions in Los Angeles.
Yeah, so the fact that George, was in the garden at Eric's house, this was here.
Take 2. I'm so nervous, I can't do it.
How did it transfer from Clapton to Delaney? Do we know?
Well, Clapton definitely would have just left it with Delaney, is the story that we have understood. That they were working on that first album, which has After Midnight and Let It Rain. And my best guess is that at some point the owner simply stopped coming over, and thus the guitar, sort of left his possession and went to Delaney's. And then Delaney gifted it to his mother, who lived in the house. So it's like an ultimate gift where you don't actually give anyone anything. And it would be brought out for the writing circles and stuff. I mean, Delaney always had a bunch of friends around the house. Dwayne Allman and the guy from the Birds. What is his name?
Roger McGuinn.
Roger McGuinn.
No.
David Crosby.
No, later Birds. The guy that.
Clarence White.
Nope. Well,
Graham Parsons.
there we go.
There you go.
Graham Parsons was a very good friend. Was a
Jerry
very good
Garcia, too.
Jerry Garcia, yes.
Because you see Jerry using the Rosewood Telly in Festival Express.
Yes, exactly. And so this guitar was, according to all of his friends' accounts, was always present at these sort of songwriting circles. They would just sit around his house. They were called motel shots. And actually, Delaney Bramlett released an album called Motel Shot, which was one of their last albums. It's, I think, one of the first acoustic albums, maybe besides the Beach Boys' Beach Party or whatever that is. Yeah. I mean, it's effectively an acoustic album, you know? And so they released a whole album of that.
Do you think this made it onto recordings, or is it more of a?
I would imagine that it's at least on that one for sure. I think the original case is on the album, but I can't confirm it. Lord knows there's more to be found out about this thing.
So many songs that could have been written by Clapton or Delaney or even
Exactly.
Garcia. Who knows?
Exactly. It's an insane. It's one of those instruments where, like, I feel like we've only sort of scratched the surface of it, and it's a good surface to have scratched. But somebody has more. You know, somebody is you know, much deeper into it in terms of. I mean, there's not a lot of photos of those motel shots. Clearly, somebody was taking photos. There's a gentleman who used to play it in Japan when he was one of Delaney's students in the 90s, and he had a bunch of stories about it. But we're guitar players, so if I saw this hanging on somebody's wall, I'd be like, God, give me that thing. I gotta try. It's so weird. It's like such a weird guitar. You'd have to be like, I gotta know what it plays like. I think it's really like a birth of classic rock moment. Like the second you hear that thing come in and you go, God, that could be Boston. That could be. It's like More Than a Feeling. It's so many moments in the Beatle, post-Beatle classic rock explosion.
Cool. Well, should we take a crack at it?
I'd love to play it. I don't know about you.
We got to give a down payment first before.
Yeah, sign some documents.
But you had to file for it within the first 30 days.
Mind if we pause for a second? I have to pee so bad.
Yeah.